Do you think that technology is killing imaginative play?
In a lot of ways, yes. And I wouldn't say that for every kid, because some kids, like they maybe need that technology, and some parents, they get burned out and they need their kid to need that technology as well. But there do have to be pauses. And I think where creativity is going to really flourish is we don't really know what's going to happen in the future.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unmasked. My name is Tyler. I'm the marketing director here at Ability Innovations. I'm joined as always with the owner of Ability Innovations, Nick Sidwell.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me today, Nick. We have, you just wrote a blog.
I did. And I learned about this topic over the Thanksgiving weekend. And so I wanted to share it because I thought, that's probably something that we should talk about.
And the blog is interesting because it's about boredom, which is something that everyone on this planet probably deals with at some times.
Yeah, and it seems like such a normal, natural thing, but it's one of those things that we don't realize that it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we were talking earlier too on Monday while you were writing this blog, and you're like, yeah, a lot of people don't know, but it's actually okay to be bored.
Yeah, I read this book this year too, and it totally tied back to that, like that we as a society, we've kind of lost the ability to be uncomfortable. And boredom is one of those where we're just not quite comfortable with it. And I see this increasingly more with the kids that I work with, but also my own kids. Like they do not like being bored.
Is this because, so I'm assuming like Thanksgiving break, your kids were home. Maybe they were saying, I'm bored or something like that.
We've got another break coming up. And so I could see a lot of parents being like, my kid is going to be so bored because they're not coming to their sessions at Ability Innovations, or they're not going to school and they're just going to get really bored.
We'll talk about this later. And especially with kids, we see they thrive on structured routines and stuff. And sometimes these breaks that we have and holidays, they kind of throw a wrench in those routines. So
and it's interesting the things that I found out about boredom. So we just jump right into
it. We'll dive right into it. I have a few questions that I want to ask, and then we'll have you answer. So as an occupational therapist, you deal with executive functioning a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with maybe kiddos that experience boredom, but they also are struggling with things like executive functioning, maybe ADHD or meltdowns, things like that? And is boredom hurting that, or can it be helpful to that? Like what are your thoughts on that as an occupational therapist?
Yeah. I definitely see that a lot of kids that we see like with ADHD or some of those kind of neurological anomalies that we see, like a lot of those kids have issues, like they like structure. They have issues with downtime, and sometimes downtime to them could be considered boredom. Some of that downtime really throws them for a loop, and they end up kind of out in left field, and they're like, hey, what happened? Like 3 hours just went by and I have no idea what happened to it. I hear that a lot from people that have executive functioning disorders where they have that thing called time blindness. Before they know it, this huge amount of time has gone by and they didn't even realize it. And so they get caught up in things that they weren't anticipating taking so long, or they didn't even realize that it took that long to them. Maybe internally it felt like it was maybe 10 minutes, but like I said, 3-4 hours have gone by. Is boredom beneficial to that? Yeah, I think it is, because if your body can't distinguish how much time is going on, it probably doesn't experience boredom a whole lot. And so if you can train your body what that downtime can look like as far as boredom is concerned, then it kind of knows like this amount of time has gone by. Because at the beginning, boredom is hard for people. Like boredom is hard for kids, especially because they want to be doing something or they want to be entertained and they're just not. They feel uncomfortable and they want to find something to do. In our world, it's an easy fix to just find some technology or find something that will hold their attention. But when that thing runs out, then what?
Right, exactly. And it's interesting too, because I have family members and people in my life that I care about who have ADHD. And I notice this like looping pattern almost that they go through constantly, where they feel like they're overwhelmed. They have a lot of tasks that they need to do. And then their mind just loops between, well, should I do this or this? And then they almost get in an argument with themselves on which one they should do first. And next thing you know, like an hour's gone by of them just kind of arguing with themselves. Now, I think you probably need an occupational therapist at that point, right?
Yeah,
to help with that.
You might, yeah.
But it's interesting because boredom can help you so you're not feeling that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it definitely can. Like, I think if you're feeling bored, then it's those times where you don't really have anything to do. And that creates like this rest period in our brains. And, for a lot of people, like you're explaining, a lot of people, they're like, I need to do this, or can I do this? And they just kind of go back and forth in their mind. And there's not ever a rest. They're constantly faced with that indecision and trying to figure out what to do next. Or I've seen the other extreme is they jump from thing to thing to thing to thing so quickly that they're never really getting anything done that they know they need to get done. And there's never a lull time. And our brains don't really work like that. Like it's like any other system in our body. There needs to be rest periods. If you go work out at the gym, there has to be some rest periods for your muscles to regroup and to heal. If you're constantly just eating, our bodies don't respond well to that. There needs to be times where we actually, like, for instance, sleep and let our bodies digest. Even our digestive system needs to rest. And there's times even, I know, like our cardiac system and our blood flow, it should constantly be going or else we're dead. So there's that. But if we have times where we're doing lots of vigorous activity and then we have times at rest, it helps our heart and our circulatory system to keep going. So there needs to be these rest periods. And if our brains are constantly engaged by something, it's not healthy. Our brains need time to repair, relax, and recalibrate, basically.
Would you say more so for kids too?
Yeah, especially while you're developing. If you're not developing those times of rest periods, then your brain never knows what to do with them. In the article, I related it back to tummy time, because when we started saying, oh, kids need tummy time, every time parents would put their kid on their tummy, they're screaming. My kid is very uncomfortable laying on their stomach. How do I do tummy time? Because the kid does not like it. And then the more that they do it, the kid gets used to it. And then lots of kids actually prefer being on their tummy. But initially they scream and they don't like it and they're very aversive to it. And I think that boredom is kind of going to be like that. We're going to have to train our kids how to do that. Like, it's going to be aversive to them. They're not going to like it at first, but the more that they practice it, especially while they're developing, the better that they are able to deal with boredom, and the better that they're able to have those times where they actually like plan that into their day, where they don't have anything to do and they can use those times to decompress.
So I also wanted to talk about sensory regulation, so people who are sensory avoidant or sensory seeking, because that is something we see in the clinic a lot. It's one of the most popular things, not popular, but one of the things that we help kids with a lot here in the clinic. Yeah. And so when it comes to boredom and kids with those sensory seeking or avoidant needs, could boredom be a hindrance to that because these kids are looking for sensory input or wanting to avoid sensory input? And do you have any tips for parents maybe on how they can help kids like find the correct sensory outlets for them?
I mean, it makes me think a lot of our kids that, they need sensory input throughout the day. And so we give them tools to do that. I think on one side of this, a lot of parents might think that, taking time to sit in a swing could be looked at as a waste of time. Like they should be doing their homework or something like that. But sometimes kids just need that time in a swing for their body to be able to focus. It's kind of like as adults, we talk about like, you can't be cutting all the time. You need to be sharpening. And for kids, sometimes that's sensory. And I think that boredom can be coupled with that. So when you're sitting in a sensory swing, do you really have to be doing anything else? Can you just sit in there and be bored for a little bit? And does that help you focus on the input that you're actually getting, that you're craving and that your body needs? So I think that boredom could facilitate that for us. And even though it looks like we're not doing anything, we're actually doing a lot for our sensory system. And on the other hand, like there's some kids that are seeking so much sensory input that it's a form of entertainment for them. And I've even known some kids, for example, that I had a little girl that I worked with once that she had to stay busy because the way that her brain works, if it stopped being busy, she would fall asleep. And so she was constantly seeking sensory input. And, most therapists would look at that and be like, oh, this is a huge sensory seeker. Like, we need to figure out how to help her like decrease her alertness level. But when I figured out that she was actually trying to just stay awake the whole time, I was like, oh, let's repattern what your sensory needs are. And can you still be bored without just like, going to sleep? Can you be bored, but still stimulate your brain in a way that it's in a rest state, like a beta state, or I think that's what it's called. Can it be in that beta state and still get the rest that it needs? And the answer is yes. You just got to figure out how to do that.
So what does boredom look like? I guess it's different for each kid, right? Because boredom could be that moment on the swing.
It could be.
Or it could just be sitting quietly.
Yeah, it could be sitting quietly. I mean, it's those times where you don't have to be entertained. Kids are constantly seeking nowadays to be entertained, or they constantly want the attention from somebody, and they don't really seek after the times where they are not entertained. Or it could just be like they need to entertain themselves. They need to learn how to do that. For instance, we often think of things like doodling on a piece of paper or fidgeting with something in our hands. Like we think that that's a waste of time, or that that's not like socially okay to be doing those things. Like it's something that we shouldn't be doing. But in all actuality, that could be what boredom looks like. I brought some toys to kind of show this with, and I've got a magnetic toy here. And boredom could just be like, if I'm flipping this around or I'm swishing things back and forth like this could be boredom. Like, it's not highly entertaining, but it's something that I can fidget with. And maybe kids really like stuff like this. And this could be their time that they just need to entertain themselves. Little things like this could be fascinating enough, but you can also have your brain in that beta state where it's able to relax and doesn't have to be highly engaged, like watching a screen or things like that we often give our kids to do. Open-ended kinds of things that kids are doing. There's not really a specific direction that the toy or the product leads you towards. Those are things that I would start with. Like, if you're going to teach your kid how to be bored, give them an open-ended toy. Like, this doesn't have a specific design of what you're supposed to do with it. I mean, they stick together, and so you can sit and do this, but like I said, they also spin and they push together. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. It's open-ended. And I've got a couple other toys that are like that. Like, a lot of parents have seen these kinds of things. These are these little click-clack toys, and they don't have a specific purpose. They're just fun to manipulate, and you can make things with them. But this could be boredom for a kid. This could just keep your kid engaged in a minor sense, but also sparking creativity, I think, is key. And teaching your kid that it's okay to just be minorly entertained and have your attention on something that is just with you and not with everything else that's going on or demanding that kind of attention.
So now, kind of moving on to what we were talking about earlier about structured routines, right? A lot of kiddos that we see here at the clinic need structure and need routine in order for them to feel safe and secure in whether it's their activities of daily living or whether it's just how they go throughout the rest of their day. So introducing boredom into that strict schedule might disrupt some things for some of these kids. So what would you say to a parent to help them introduce boredom into this routine without it completely breaking that structure down?
First is helping the parents understand that this is like it's like an important thing that your brain needs to be able to do. And so if something's important, then we probably need to schedule it in for them. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time. We can start with 5 minutes, and it might just be like, maybe before you go to bed, for example. Before you go to bed, I want you to just have some bedroom time where you hang out in your bedroom, You don't really have anything else you got to do. And then after 5 minutes, I'll come in and we'll do the bedroom routine where we read books or whatever we're doing with them. So it could just be like, we're going to close the door, let you have alone time in your bedroom for 5 minutes. And then maybe we build that up to 10, 20, 30. And that actually helps parents too, to have that time. But it teaches our kids that they need to be able to have unstructured time, boredom time that is built into their day, and it gives their brain time to process and time to relax a little. I think that having this alone time for kids is super beneficial, and it can fit right into whatever schedule that they already have. It doesn't have to disrupt the whole thing, and we don't have to start off with 30 minutes. But it could just be, some other parents have done like a routine where maybe there's certain break times that the kid doesn't have their tablet or their phone with them. Or maybe it's only certain days that they are allowed to have that time with their phone or some kind of technology. A lot of parents are taking breaks from technology, and I think that that's a very helpful thing for kids too, because they're left with, okay, now I'm bored. What do I do? And that's where the creativity starts to set in, and they find things to do to engage themselves. And it doesn't have to be anything that they're acted upon. It can be things that they act on, like I'm going to do this craft. And Mom, do we have any paper? And they start just doing something, and sitting at a table crafting something still can be considered boredom time, because their brain can still be at rest when they're doing things. But that's when the creativity starts to spark in.
And I love that too, because it's not something mom and dad decided for them. It's something they decided. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And maybe we have to teach them that too. Maybe we have to give them a list of things like, hey, when you're bored, try one of these things. And here's a list of 30 things that you could do. I'm sure that Pinterest or Google or something like that has lists like that out there. Here's a list of 30 things that you can do when you're bored, and just give them the list and say, go for it. And I think that is such a unique thing that we used to do as kids, but we weren't surrounded by as much technology and as much stuff that's pulling at our attention. And we could train kids to be able to do that again.
Do you think that technology is killing imaginative play?
In a lot of ways, yes. And I wouldn't say that for every kid, because some kids, like they maybe need that technology, and some parents, they get burned out and they need their kid to need that technology as well. But there do have to be pauses. And I think where creativity is going to really flourish is, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. And this might be a soapbox moment for me real quick, but we don't know what the future is going to look like for any of our kids that we're working with. The reality is there are so many technological advances happening so quickly that we can't really prepare them for that. So the things that really will prepare them for that are creativity and adaptability. And how do we teach those things? Boredom is a great vehicle for that. We can teach kids to be creative. We can teach kids to be adaptive, or to figure things out and be good problem solvers by setting the stage with boredom. I do think that that's supremely important. And if we're not doing that, are we robbing them of those opportunities to be creative and to learn things like how to adapt and how to problem solve through tricky situations? They may not have other ways to do that. We try and teach it in school, but a natural way is through boredom.
So this next question kind of goes along with the holiday season that we're coming in. So we've talked about executive functioning and how boredom can be integrated into certain routines. But what are some of those specific things that you, as an occupational therapist, would recommend to parents to maybe gift their child or inspire their child to help them get through boredom and situations like that?
So if we're offering these times of boredom to our kids and then saying like, here's some possible ideas of things that you could do, it might be giving them something like, my favorite thing, especially when I worked in the schools that I started to do with kids, was I just took blank paper. I just had 2 sheets of blank paper, and we would do all kinds of things with that paper. So if you hand a kid just a blank piece of paper and say, what should we do with this? And just leave that open to them, Maybe they make a paper airplane. Maybe they crumple it into a ball. But there's a million different things that you can do with a sheet of paper. It could be cutting it into a snowflake, or we could write and draw on it. Like, there's so many things that you can do with a piece of paper that might be something that we give them to kind of start that process. Boredom ticklers, I think, is an apt phrase. Boredom ticklers should be open-ended. They should have things that there's not a specific and direct purpose behind it. There's a million things that you could do with it. So think of like the Swiss Army activities. There's a lot of toys that are out there like that. Montessori, for example, like the Montessori programs that are out there, they have specific toys that they have there to spark kids' creativity and interests. And they prompt higher level thinking, things like engineering and the arts and all of that. So anything that's got like a Montessori spin to it, it's kind of fun. I also just think being outdoors is really great for kids. It might be hard right now where it's getting cold, but even going outside and being cold, are there things that we can do outside even when it's cold, and finding things that are boredom ticklers? Catching snowflakes on colored paper. I mean, or what kinds of things can you find in the snow that, or in this pile of snow? If we dig through it, what kinds of things are we going to find? And it might just be leaves and grass, but it could be a whole activity sifting through the snow to find the hidden treasures. And it doesn't have to be anything amazing that we buy them. It could be simple things like that, but there's a lot of great tools and things out there. And speaking of tools, give them a tool and find something that's broken and just give it to them and say, here you go, either fix it or take it apart, or see, this is an old alarm clock or something like that. Give them some tools and see what they can do with it. And that in and of itself is open-ended. Maybe they fix it, maybe they don't, but you'd be surprised how many kids just like screwing and unscrewing screws and taking things apart.
So there's a part or a section in your blog where you discuss intrinsic motivation. If you want to just take a few moments and just define what intrinsic motivation is, and then tell us how it applies to specifically teenagers and young adults.
Like we've been saying, in our day and age, our kids are just handed a lot, and they're constantly going and doing and being presented with stuff. And I mean, we can sit for hours on a phone doing the death scroll, and kids are learning to do that too. And so intrinsic motivation kind of comes from the idea of, like I said, instead of being acted upon by our technology or the things that draw our attention, are there things that we can do that are coming from within ourselves intrinsically? Are there things that we are choosing to do, and hobbies that we find that we like to be engaged in that we never realized before, that come from deep inside of us and that we want to do because they're part of things that make us interested, not things that are just handed or fed to us? And so you can see how, like, with children and with teens, they could fill their world with all the things that, there's algorithms out there that are programming them to only get what they like. But there's also things that they're being handed that we want to keep them away from. And if they're focused more on what they are actually finding out that they do like, these intrinsically motivated tasks and things like that, then they're not having to be exposed to all of those things as much. And when a kid is bored, or when a teenager is bored, and then they find something that they want to do intrinsically, then it means more to them. They start to realize, like, I don't have to spend every waking minute in front of a screen. And I think that that's really helpful for teens. But it also speaks to kind of this larger idea of, in life, there's a rhythm, and there's ups and there's downs, and there's also these lull periods in between where, we take breaks and our bodies need to sleep. And even when we breathe, there's not just in and out. Sometimes there's a pause in between. You breathe in, you pause. There's this kind of dead period where we're pausing, and then we breathe out, and then there's another pause. And we forget about those pause times in life. It's healthy to have that rhythm and to keep that rhythm going. And what I'm afraid of is that a lot of kids and teens are actually being exposed to with their brains, that they're constantly being engaged, and that just builds as they go on, and they're losing that intrinsic motivation in their lives. They don't really know what they like. They're being told what they like through these very specific algorithms that come from all of the social media and the things that they're being exposed to on their phones. I think a lot of us, if we think back to our childhood as parents, and we start to realize like we grew up and we didn't have all that stuff in front of our face all the time. Why did you pick the same clothing that you did every day? Was it because it came from some influencer? Or was it because you walked through the store and you're like, oh, I like that. Can I have this? And that was something intrinsic. And I watched my kids today and they're like, I got this because so-and-so influencer said that this is the best thing. And so I want this to be part of my thing that I wear. And I want everybody to recognize it. And so that I can say, oh yeah, remember so-and-so from this channel? Like she's the one that told me about this and it looks just like hers. I watch my kids do that. And I'm like, do you really like it? Or are you just trying to be cool because some influencer said it?
Yeah. And I think to an extent, we maybe even did that as kids. Like there was always the popular trends that everyone would wear and stuff.
Popular brands.
But we still went and picked out what we wanted. It wasn't, we specifically clicked on a link that an influencer put in their bio or whatever and got that exact item. You know, we still had to go to the mall or the store and buy it.
Well, and I think about too, like some of the hobbies that I have, because for whatever reason, I have a ton of hobbies. So we'll say I really like fly tying. I found out that I liked fly tying because I tried it once and I liked it. I was actually bored and somebody gave me a little fly tying kit. And so I was sitting there trying to figure out how to do it. And I found out that I really liked tying flies because I like fishing. I like fly fishing. I never would have guessed that I liked tying flies because I had never been exposed to it. I had to have that boredom time where I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll try this. And then I found out that I liked it. That came from inside of me, not somebody telling me like, you should try this. This is amazing. You can spend way less money on flies. And here's the link to my video. You can buy all the supplies here. Like I didn't need somebody guiding me through that. I learned a lot of that by myself, that I liked it. And I developed that hobby or that skill because of boredom. And I think kids can do that too.
I mean, speaking of that too, and you can help other people in your own personal circle because you actually helped me a lot when I went fishing because you told me about the trick with how you can use a clear bobber and attach a fly to the end. And you can kind of mimic fly fishing with a regular pole. This is probably not interesting to some of you listening, but I actually found a lot of success. I caught like 7 fish in one day up in the Uintas, and that's because Nick told me about that little trick.
I have flies that I've tied specifically for that, like up in that area. And nobody really showed me how to do that either. Like I just went and said, it seems like they're biting all of these flies, so I need a whole handful of those. So I went home and I tied them, and I keep those on hand when I go to the Uintas. We find out that we like these things, and we may be influenced a little bit by some influencers, but a lot of this came from just something that we were experiencing ourselves, not being told to experience or being fed. I've got a kid that I see that he loves to build things out of pipe cleaners. So you just give him a stack of pipe cleaners and he can entertain himself for hours now.
I mean, it's awesome to see how boredom and hobbies can kind of go hand in hand if you do it the right way.
Yeah, totally.
So my next question is maybe about parents that might feel guilty letting their child be bored because maybe these children have not serious disabilities, but they maybe need more attention than other children do. And so parents feel like, in all my free time, I need to make sure that we are working on these milestones and trying to help my child overcome these. And maybe if I just let them be bored, there's more important things we could be doing. And so how do you help parents overcome those guilty feelings and maybe encourage them to allow their child to be bored?
I would tell parents a lot like, your kid needs time to be a kid. I mean, we're kind of programmed to think we always need to be on the go. and doing things. And in a lot of sense, like, yeah, time is limited. We need to do that. But your kid also needs to be a kid. They need to have time to play. They need leisure time and they need boredom time. And we can help them learn things from those time periods of boredom and leisure and just downtime. Helping parents understand that that's a healthy thing for their kids is good. But I think also you have to ask yourself too, why you think that your kid needs to be constantly going and working and doing. Where is that coming from? Where is that idea coming from? Is that something that you've been told as an adult or something that you grew up thinking? And if you look back to your childhood, was every minute of your day scripted out for you? Did you have one thing to the next that you were bouncing to? And maybe you did, but most of us, we had downtime.
And even did you enjoy that? Like if that was your life, having everything micromanaged?
I don't think that most kids really like that. And, I do see some families that come here at Ability Innovations and I mean, they're busy. They are bouncing from one thing to the next. And I have had some families that are just like, we're going to stop therapy because I think my kid is just like worn out. And I think that that's okay. It's okay to understand that about your child and to honor that and respect that and watch for, some kids really thrive on just go, 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 go. That can be a personality thing or a type of personality. But I think most kids, they need downtime. They need to decompress. They need boredom.
Yeah.
And they might fight against it at first. Like we've said, like you might have to start off with 5 minutes at a time, but they actually need it. And pretty soon they will crave that.
So here at Ability Innovations, we really pride ourselves on play-based therapy, a child-authentic therapy, like therapy that is specifically designed to help keep children involved and engaged and ultimately meet their milestones and make progress as they play. So with that being said, how do we integrate play-based boredom, so to speak, into a child's routine or schedule?
And it may not be during therapy that they're doing this, but maybe it's something that they're doing at home. It's part of their home programming, maybe. And maybe they do need that break time. Like they should, during their breaks, they should be allowed to go and do this, or they should have certain things that they're able to start doing as break time. And other times, I think kids, they need time, what we call in therapy as non-preferred activities. So they need time to just maybe do nothing, or they need time to focus on one small little thing that they're doing. Maybe it's shoe tying. So we just need to give them some time each day to work on a non-preferred task. And if you think about life, not everything that we do is going to be preferred. Like real life is, there are things that just happen and we have to muddle through them and get through them, and they're non-preferred. Paying taxes, for example. Right. Nobody likes doing that. Maybe accountants do, but accountants, they do it because it's their job. So other than that, I don't think anybody really likes doing their taxes and going through all of their financials and figuring all that stuff out. But we have to do it. That's just part of life, especially here in America. When we set kids up for success, we also have to give them that non-preferred time, that non-preferred activity. And we do that a lot in therapy. You'll see like some goals that are saying like so-and-so will engage in a non-preferred task that is maybe more therapist driven, or something that they have to pick out of a list of 3 or something like that. And we often do that in therapy, and that can be considered like boredom time. It could be something that's not highly engaging to that kid, but might still be interesting and might still hit like a point of interest for that kid. And then gradually we can get them into like, you're going to have this unstructured, non-preferred time, and it's going to be okay. Even though you're a little resistant to it, you'll be okay. You only have to do this for 5 minutes. So we can build that tolerance up for that in sessions. We can build that for our kids when they're at home, that they're able to do those kinds of things. And that prepares them to be, successful and productive adults, because in real life, they're going to have to learn to do those skills. Those are things that that everybody has to be okay with.
Well, Nick, thank you for sharing all of your thoughts on this. And I will make sure to link this blog that Nick has put together in the show notes as well. So I encourage everyone to go and read that, because there's some really good nuggets of information there that you can even apply to your own life, right? Because we all get bored.
Yeah, I think that adults need to plan in boredom time too. Maybe that's the new self-care, is being bored.
Being bored, right?
And it's okay to be bored. It can be uncomfortable, but that's just normal. We don't need to think of it as something that's aversive.
I'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Therapy Unmasked. Like always, our Therapy Unmasked podcast is brought to you by Ability Innovations, this wonderful clinic that we're sitting in right now. We have 2 locations, one in Ogden and one in Layton. And if you want to support us and support what we do, consider bringing your child in for an evaluation, or check out our online courses that we offer. We have a brand new course that's going to be published hopefully before this podcast comes out. And it features one of our therapists named Lauren, who works at our sister company, Children in Motion. And she's put together this really awesome, comprehensive course on sleep and overcoming bad sleep habits that you may have with your child. Right. It dives into things like co-sleeping, how we can get our child to sleep in their own bed. And she even talks about bedwetting, which is a pretty common thing I've learned with kids of that age. So check that out. And also, it is the time of year where we do the giving tree here at Ability Innovations. I will link that in the show notes as well. All of the money that we raise for our giving tree goes directly to helping families at our clinics who are struggling financially and maybe need a little support in helping cover costs of therapy and whatnot. So I know those families are very appreciative for the donations we receive.
And every little bit helps. Like, we've had some people that just do $5, and we are so grateful for even just that.
Yeah, we really are. And we appreciate all of you who tune in each time to listen and follow us on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode of Therapy Unmasked. Bye.
See ya.